I went home and I just couldn't stop thinking about her.
When you're in country and you're sitting still and idle, that's a bad sign.
She no longer had a heartbeat. She wasn't breathing. That was the first one on the chest. I started compressions first.
Need advocates. We need people that are going to hold companies, government, hold these people accountable. I'm up in the tower. All I know is that they come up and they're like, "Hey, you're going to go to the truck and you're going to, pull security using your truck in the Mark 19." And at the time, I also had my 249, my SAW, the squad automatic weapon. It's basically just a machine gun version of the M4, which is an AR-15, basically. So I've got that and a small little ammo can in the tower with me. So I start to come out of this tower, and I've got weapon in one hand, ammo can in the other, and I've made this trip down this tower many times over the past month.
Stairs, or so. I assume.
Ish. They definitely built them, but I wouldn't say they built them well.
What materials are they made out of?
Normal materials that you build any kind of stairs, like metal and wood, but I think the top stair was like overutilized or something, but it was like angled down just a little bit. So I'm about 10 feet off the top of this Iraqi police station, and I've got weapon in one hand, ammo can in the other. I've got my vest on. I've got my helmet on. I've got, all my gear. I've got, ammo on, and I've got my pistol. I'm loaded down.
And as far as you know, you're going down to man your very intense weapon in order for, okay. Got it.
So
continue.
I will say that I made it down the stairs. I made it down the stairs of the tower. And it's just a tower with an outside staircase right to the roof. And I made it down. Not the way I preferred.
How'd that go?
I took the first step, and that's all I remember. Next thing you know, I've got, everybody around me trying to pick me up. And they're like, "Hey, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay." They're stripping my stuff off, making sure, nothing's broken or anything like that. I missed the first step, and I just went straight head first down.
When you come in and you get asked the questions of saying, "Hey, how are you going to take care of the people in the community?" I took the question from somebody else of saying, when we bring somebody in, ask the question, rank these 4 items in the priority of what's the most important of being your safety, your crew's safety, citizen safety, and then your equipment. And what we default back to is we're looking for the aspect of saying that our biggest priority is our citizens' safety. Because if you do everything you're supposed to of training your crew, the equipment will be there with the community supports you, and knowing how to use your equipment, that you can make the citizens the priority number one. This is why we're here, is for the citizens, for them. And you can translate that into the question, who is the most important person in your life? And for most individuals, they may say, "Hey, my mom is, my grandma is, my brother, girlfriend, my kids are." Okay, so your kid has an incident, your grandma has an incident. What are you expecting to show up? Well, I want somebody who knows what they're doing. I want a crew that's going to be able to get my kid out of the house fire. I want to know that I'm getting the best. Exactly. So your biggest priority is your kid. If you show up and your kid's in there, you're going to run in there, aren't you? Well, yeah, probably. All right. And you better use that as the same mentality. If I don't care who's there, you're in your own community, take care of them. They're number one. Make that the priority every day when you come down. That's the commitment we try to instill from the beginning. So make sure your training's there, make sure your crew's there, take care of your equipment, know how to use your equipment so that when you're called to do your best, you can give the citizens their best.
Our planes had yet to arrive, so we had spare time. And I woke up in the middle of the night and they were doing ops because you could hear the catapult slamming up right above you. And so I walked up and put on my gear and went up to the flight deck. And the scene that unfolded was not what I imagined. It was very dark. There was a slight orangish glow from some of the lighting that there was. It was supposed to be red lighting, but it seemed orange to me. But none of the aircraft had any lights going, none of them, and they were running. And the only thing you saw were the little flashlight wands that they used for communication, because a plane captain would use one as well. They had the little white sticks,
right?
And so we'd use that to give the hand signals that we would normally give. So you could see those, but you couldn't see the intakes. You couldn't see the exhaust.
Getting back to the fire service, do you have like any particular calls or experiences that you can recall?
There's a few. I watched a friend of mine. We were at a garage fire, as in a service garage, and it was so hot that day, and we're all in our gear, and we're fighting this fire, and it's the first time I ever seen somebody vomit inside their face mask.
What's something that you would pass along to other individuals getting into the field? Do something scary or something?
Yeah, always do something that scares you. And it's advice I've always given my kids, and they turned it around against me too when I started considering the paramedic program. But
that's funny.
It is funny and apropos. But they when they're talking about sports, I don't know if I want it because I might get hurt. But if you don't do it, you'll never know. It's one of those things, and it's learning to overcome something is not just overcoming that thing. It is building the confidence to take on something else down the road, and knowing that you're capable of changing your life in a way to accommodate that.
Yeah, definitely. They were. I don't know how, because the chaos that we saw in the news and the videos everything that we saw in that chaos, it's not fabricated. It really was that chaotic, and like he just described it as people just trying to do whatever they could to get on that airplane and to get out of there, because they knew once the Taliban took over that for anybody that helped the U.S., it was over for them. And so it's heartbreaking, but I've gotten Facebook messages still from Afghans that are over there that somehow find me on Facebook. And they're like, hey brother, can you help me? Can you help me get out of here? I'm like, I don't have any resources. It sucks because like I wish we could just teleport them out of there and take them out of that situation and bring them over here. But I'm just a lowly sergeant in an infantry unit, in the United States. What can I do? So yeah, I one video, one message that I received about 2 years ago even was from an Afghan counterpart there at the base, and he sends me a video through Facebook Messenger of himself hiding behind his couch, and you see him, and then you see through the window the Taliban are knocking at his door, pounding on his door, trying to get him out. He's like, help me, brother, I can't get out of here, like I don't know what to do. And I there was nothing I could do. That sucked. That hurt. That was not fun, And so he's still around. Thank goodness he made it out of the situation. But he's still in Afghanistan. But he did make it out of that particular situation.
We're mocking up how to load planes on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
So the Navy had I forget the nomenclature they had, but they had a bomb rack setting there, and they had Mark 81s, which were 250 pound bombs. And it was kind of up close to the bomb rack on the F4, I think we're loading up on. And they said, hey, PFC couch, go over there and load this bomb. And we're getting graded. So I was the quote unquote team leader, and we were supposed to use hernia bars, which are bars that go under the bomb. You kind of have two people and you kind of lift them up and get them up in the bomb rack. Well, I went over there and I grabbed the damn thing. I put it on the bomb rack.
What was your perspective and kind of like, what were your thoughts on when September?
Oh, I was pissed. I was pissed.
Sure.
I wanted to re-enlist. But I was like, I went down, and again, I talked to the recruiter, and they were just like, well, you might want to try to go in the Army. He said, because you'd be air wing again.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't know. And then I just like, if I can't be a Marine, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no offense to any of the branches. It's just I'm hardcore Marine Corps. You know what I mean? It's just it is what it is on that aspect.
Sure.
I was mad. You know what I mean? You attacked our soil. Last time that happened, it was Pearl Harbor.
Right.
We need to go. We need to take care of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was horrible. the volume that we see is actually, it's a lot higher. It's probably 30% higher now on a daily basis in the ER with sicker patients because they waited, during that time frame over a 2-year period. If you don't, or a year and a half period, whatever it was, if you don't do preventative medicine, it's just going to make your comorbidities, that much worse. And we're seeing it now. I mean, patients that could have been taken care of with some simple different medicines or other treatments are coming in and they're train wrecks, man, and they're staying longer in the hospital, and we just can't. We're overran.
Yeah.
It's not COVID. We're overran. We're just overran with sick people.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, man, back when these hospitals were built, they were built for a certain amount of population. They never never factored in like population growth.
Right.
So you have 100, I'm just going to throw 100,000 people move into your hometown when you only have one hospital. Well, you can't facilitate that. Your infrastructure, even with EMS, anything, fire, anything, is just you need to add.
I remember a certain call as well that I responded with, and this is again early in the career, that we had responded to a house fire, and I was on call for the weekend, and my wife at the time would always listen to the scanner, and wanting to know what was going on, see what's happening, and we ended up going to a house fire that potentially had 5 or 6 kids trapped in the house. We responded as the first truck. I think there were 3 of us on the truck, and we had pretty heavy fire inside the structure at the time. So much so that the door frame of the door was actually on fire, and we got there, and the engineer that stayed on the truck was like, "You guys aren't going in until we have somebody here to back you up." And we kind of got everything ready, had hose laid out, had it charged, ready to go. As soon as the next engine pulled up on scene, which I think was a neighboring department, we hit the front door, going in. Again, you have that adrenaline of there's potentially people trapped in this house, and the fact that they were kids as well. I don't remember how far. It was probably 2-3 feet into the door, and all of a sudden the hose got just yanked out of my hand, and it's hot. I mean, there's fire in there, of course.
Fire's hot.
Yeah, fire's hot.
One of the first things you learn.
But all of a sudden, I'm like calling for my partner, and he's not there. So I'm grabbing a hold of the hose and finding that it's going down through the floor. So this is my very first interior structure fire. So yelling and screaming, for my partner. Hey, finally I heard him. In the process, back in the day, used to, we have a chin strap that goes around your helmet. It wasn't cool to wear a chin strap back then. You put it over the top of your helmet, and just tighten it down. Well, the chin strap's there so it doesn't pull off your head. So sticking my head down, yelling and screaming through the floor, trying to get a hold of my partner, and next thing you know, my helmet falls off. So now that goes down in the basement. But, screaming, yelling, he ends up, calling back, ends up getting up onto the floor. He's kind of holding onto the edge of the floor, and it's getting hot, and the fire keeps banking down. So by this time, I think there was maybe 12 to 18 inches where the fire from the floor to where the fire was, and then everything above it was fire. So it's getting hot. So I ended up pulling the hose up through the floor. He ended up dropping back down into the hole, into the basement, or the next level down, because it was too hot. And ended up, getting some of the fire knocked down, cooling things off. Crew had come in. I yelled at them, "Hey, partner fell through the floor. We need a ladder. We need to get him up out of the floor." They came in, and we ended up, keeping it cooled down enough to where we ended up getting out. Once we got him up out of the basement, I shut things down and kind of left with him. And we'd done a lot of things, on the scene. Of course, both of us, our gear's hot enough. It's smoking, and I mean, it's definitely hot. I ended up switching on my air pack, and put another bottle in it. I had to go find my helmet. Never did find it myself. One of the other guys found it from going in the backside of the house. But in that process, we got all done, and I take my mask off, and I had one of the firefighters had walked up to me, and she just got this panicked look on her face. And I'm going, what the heck? What's that all about? And she just walked away and never said nothing. I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting there, and my deputy chief comes up to me and looks at me, and he's like, you're done for the day. And I'm like, okay, what did I do? All right. I don't know what's going on. So I'm sitting there and taking gear off, kind of stressing down. It's hot. All of a sudden I start, top of my head, I'm like, man, it's kind of starting to sting. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, man, grab some water. Of course, you know me with water. I'm not real good with water. But I dumped it over my head, and I'm like, this is good. Cooled off. I'm like, all right, well, we're standing outside again, and it's sun shining. And I'm like, man, my head's getting hot. What's going on? Well, I didn't know when my helmet had come off. It actually pulled my Nomex hood, which is what goes around to help protect us as well. Pulled it away from the side of my mask, so the side of my face was opened. I had second-degree burns down the side of my face. I had skin kind of hanging, and then the top of my head was first and second-degree burns from, just being that hot. And now all the adrenaline is coming off. Now I'm getting to that point of, now I'm starting to feel this. Well, so during this whole process, okay, my wife is listening to the scanner.
So there was probably a mayday
she's
called out.
hearing all of this. Yeah, there's a mayday called, firefighter down, firefighter fell through the floor, firefighter burned. She's hearing all this. She ended up calling one of the other wives of one of the other firefighters. Is like, are you listening to this? What's going on? Who's there? I know he's there. I know he's at this fire. So, yeah. So they were like, you're going to go down to the burn center. I'm like, all right, I'll drive. They're like, no, you're going in an ambulance. I'm like, I don't need an ambulance. I'm fine. Typical. But yeah,
I feel like that's in your bloodline.
Yeah, I think so.
But we were catching catnaps where we could. We would refuel and just keep driving forward. We would hit defensive positions. I know we had a big fight with an Iraqi commando unit. Once we shot them to pieces, we kept on going, and we left any survivors and so on to be dealt with by the supply trains coming up behind us, the engineers, the medics. Headquarters units and mechanics, elements coming up behind us would take care of all of the prisoners and clothe them and tend to their needs and all that. The fighting elements, we didn't pause. We just kept rolling forward.
And that's not typical.
It really depends. It was typical for that type of doctrine and that type of fighting that we were doing, that blitzkrieg type of offensive maneuver, where we were not going to pause for anybody. We had certain objectives we had to meet. Conversational, and I'm still off balance, getting out of the car, and he just very casually lifts the front of his shirt and pulls out a gun. And in my head, I remember thinking, oh, shit. He's got the drop on me because I'm still off balance. I'm stepping out of the car, and a lot of things go through my head. His hand's coming up, and I'm thinking, okay, it's going to hurt, but I have this vest, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let this punk-ass kid take me out. And I sidestepped as I'm drawing. We had Sig Sauers in those days. I sidestepped to be a moving target, and his hand's still coming up. My hand's coming up. And just as I take up slack, because we had a double action only Sig Sauer in those days, as I'm taking up the slack and I'm bringing the gun up, my hands are coming together. And again, we're about this close. His hand's already up in my chest, and I'm thinking, oh man, it's going to hurt, but I'm going to kill this son of a bitch. And his hand keeps going up, and he goes, it's a toy.
We want to take a moment to thank our principal sponsors. These companies have supported Hero Services from a more general perspective rather than sponsoring a singular event. Window World, Paul Davis, and Bathworks have all committed to supporting Hero Services with their events as well as our various programs that we offer. Not only do these companies support Hero Services, but they have various other charitable donations as well. Please take the time to wound up looking into these companies in case you need any of your home renovation needs.